welcome to my channel. I'm Christina and today is Mystery Box Challenge Day. I'm sure that a lot of you have heard of the Mystery Box Challenge by now, but if you haven't, it was created by Courtney over at Creative on the Cheap. She gets a group of us creators together here on YouTube and we're each assigned another person from the group that we have to send a box full of 10 crafting items to. In the 10 items, 2 of the items have to be challenging, and then we also have a theme for each box, a twist in each box, and also a guest host. This time around, our guest host is Whitney from Whiskey and Wit. So she got to choose the theme and pick which items we had to send in the box. The theme that she chose is Hello Sunshine, which I absolutely loved. And then for the 10 items, I have a little cheat sheet here. For item number 1, we had to send a item of, it says sun or SPF item. Number 2, citrus. 3, ice cream. 4 was vacation. Item 5 is either barbecue or something campfire related. Then we have item number 6 was popsicle. Item 7 was baseball. And then 8 was a beach item. And then for challenge item number 1, she wanted us to send sunglasses. And then for challenge item number 2, it had to be an outdoor toy or game. For the twist this time around, we could not send anything from Dollar Tree. It had to be from anywhere but Dollar Tree. So the box that I got to send this time around is over to Wendy over at White Sparrow Living. And then the box that I'll be opening up here today is from Tracy from Country Charm by Tracy. So I'm super excited to open up the box, so let's go ahead and do it now. Okay, I have noticed in the past that I do a lot of crinkling, so I'm gonna try not to do that this round. I've already cut open the box, and the first thing that I see on top here is a card that says Christina. Well, let's open that up. It says, Christina, how fun was this box to put together for you? I know you will make something amazing. Much love, Tracy. And then it says, P.S. Please don't hold the outdoor game against me. Oh no. Okay. Hopefully the outdoor game's not too hard. So she put some pretty paper on top. I'm gonna set this aside here and then dig in. She's got some things bubble wrapped. I'm assuming these are probably the challenge items, so I'm gonna put those off to the side. And first thing I notice is this cute hat. How adorable is this? It is the sun or SPF item. This is super cute. And yeah, this is really cute. Doll accessories. I love this. Then I see we have the baseball item, just some baseball beads. That was really creative. I didn't even think about doing something like that for the baseball item that I sent. Next thing, the beach item. This is some beach toys or like sand toys. And there's a bunch to choose from in here, so that should be fun. And we've got the popsicle item. And I will say, she labeled these so cute. And it's like little watermelons, which I have been loving the watermelon and strawberry like themed stuff this summer. So these will be super fun to work with. Okay, and then this is item number 4, vacation. And I'm not sure. I'm gonna open this up and see exactly what it is. And I'm gonna save all this cute little ribbon that she sent. It's so cute. Okay. Oh, it's like a little beach bag. How cute is this? I love this, Tracy. You are being so nice to me. Are you buttering me up for the outdoor toy or game? Because I'm a little scared. Okay, I'm assuming this is the citrus. It says citrus. And I think this is like a placemat or something. Let's see. I think it's a placemat. Yeah, it is a placemat. It's still so cute. You think we should count how many times I said cute in this video so far? Okay, this is the item number 3, ice cream. Okay, so how adorable is this already? Like, I don't even want to do anything with this. This is so cute. I love that. Okay, and then here we have barbecue campfire. Oh, good. These are a good item. You can do so many different crafts with these. These are just like the little skewers that you cook with. Now we have the 2 challenge items left. This one here is the sunglasses. Oh, these are so cute. They're like 4th of July ones. And then for challenge item number 2, this is the one I should be scared for, right? Okay, this is the outdoor toy or game. She has it like in a little Ziploc bag too. So that kind of scares me. Oh, okay, this isn't too bad. This is a little like boomerang sets that you can get. I was expecting worse. This is still really hard, but I don't know what I was expecting, but I think I can make it work. That was everything in the box. Thank you, Tracy, for being nice to me. A lot of those items were actually super cute and I didn't even want to do anything with them, but I'm really excited to get to crafting, so I will see you back here shortly. For the first DIY today, I'm going to be using this unfinished wood piece from Hobby Lobby as well as that lemon placemat that Tracy sent me. I'm going to be needing to attach it to the inside of that wood sign, but the corners were rounded on the placemat, so here I'm just going to be using my cutting tool to cut those edges so that they're straight. And then I just placed the placemat inside of the sign, and it was good for the width, but the height I needed to cut down. So I just kind of bent that a little bit so I knew exactly where to cut, and then I trimmed it down to size. I'm then staining the outside of that wood framed piece with some walnut wood tint, and then I'm going to be just using some hot glue to start attaching that placemat on the inside of my wood sign. I'm also going to be using another one of these unfinished wood framed pieces from Hobby Lobby, and I'm doing the same thing, just using my walnut wood tint to stain the entire frame, and then on the inside I'm just going to be painting that with some white chalk paint. I really wanted to have a lemonade saying on the center of this, so I went into Cricut Design Space, I found one that was already created and just cut that out on my Cricut. I did delete the little lemon that was originally on the design because I wanted to paint one on myself. Here I'm just getting that transferred to the center of the sign, and then because I didn't have a little lemon stencil that was small enough, I created my own with some stencil vinyl, and then here I'm just painting that onto my sign. And then once it was all painted, I just used some hot glue to attach the smaller sign in the center of the larger one, and this is what it looks like all finished. This was such a fun and easy project, and it was super simple to create. Next up is DIY number 2. For this one, I'm going to be using the watermelon popsicle molds that Tracy sent, and I'm just going to start by removing the tops because I don't need them for this project. I'm then using some air dry clay that I had on hand, and I'm just pressing it out onto one of the watermelon triangles. I'm making sure to press hard enough that those seeds get pressed into the clay. And then once I have it on there pretty well, I'm just using one of my little cutting tools here to cut away a straight line and just take that excess clay away. And then once I have that done, I'm just very carefully taking my clay off of my watermelon mold and then just using my fingers to press around the edges of the clay just to make sure that they look nice and smooth. I did this 5 different times, so I had 5 of these. They're now strawberries. They were originally going to be watermelons, but I'm switching it up and making them into strawberries. And then with the strawberries, I needed to add some leaves. So I just pressed out some of my clay and then using my cutting tool to cut shapes of leaves. And then once I have it cut out, I'm just using my fingers to kind of form and shape the leaves a little bit better. So I did 4 leaves on all 5 of my strawberries and then just kind of pressing them into the top of my strawberry and letting those completely dry. After my clay was all dry, I then went in with some red paint and painted all 5 of the strawberries. And then for the leaves, I painted those with a darker green paint. I then needed to add some seeds, and since these are strawberries now and not watermelons, I needed to add several seeds. So here I just used a Sharpie and just free-handed all of them. For this project, I'm also using one of these larger unfinished wood rounds from Hobby Lobby, and I'm painting the top half of it white. For the bottom half, I'm going to be covering it with this red and white checked fabric, also from Hobby Lobby. I just had it go across the front, and then for the back, I'm going to be attaching it, but as you can see, I tried to staple it on, and I stapled right through my table. So the staples were too long, I needed to improvise, and I just ended up using some hot glue to pull that fabric really tight along the back side. Once that was on, I then just placed my strawberries in the top of my sign, and they were kind of just like overlapping each other, and then I went in with some hot glue and attached them down. I then have this wood trim piece that apparently I forgot to film myself cutting it and staining it, but I did those things. And now I'm using some hot glue to attach it right at the seam of where the fabric and the wood meet. I'm going to be adding some wood letters to my strawberries to spell out the word sweet. So here I'm using these ones from Hobby Lobby and I'm painting them all white. And then I'm just going to be attaching each letter down in the center of my strawberries. Next, I'm going to be incorporating the bag that Tracy sent, and here I'm just cutting off the handle portion of the bag, and then I'm cutting that down into 2 different strips. For the first strip, I'm just going to be attaching it here with some hot glue, a little bit from the bottom of the wood round, and then cutting off the excess on the edges. And then for the second strip, I'm just attaching that right underneath the first strip, and then again, just cutting away the excess around the edges. I'm eventually going to attach this summer wood cutout, but before I do that, I'm adding some of these small flowers. These ones are from Hobby Lobby. I'm just cutting them down off their stems a little bit and then placing them in that pocket that I made with the handle of the bag. I then wanted to add a little bit of white detail, so here I'm using some of this white rope and attaching it with hot glue underneath my wood trim. And then here I'm finally attaching the summer woodward cutout. And then once I have that on, I thought that I needed some more white underneath the flowers, so I'm using another piece of this white rope and attaching it at the very top of that bag that I used. And now I needed to create a bow, so I've cut a small, a medium, and large piece of this burlap ribbon that I had, and then I wanted to create my own decorative ribbon. So here I'm taking this strawberry ribbon from Michaels and I'm attaching it to the center of my burlap ribbon just to create my own ribbon here. So once I have that attached, I'm then going to be attaching the 2 ends of that ribbon together to form a circle. I did that for all 3 of my pieces, and then once I have that done, I'm stacking them from largest to smallest, gathering them together in the center, and then using some jute twine to wrap around the center of my bow to tie it off. I then needed to add a tail end to my bow, so I'm doing the same thing. I just cut a piece of that burlap ribbon, attached the strawberry ribbon, and then once I have that done, I'm just gonna be folding it in half and then taking my top portion of my bow and attaching it to the tail ends with some hot glue. I then added my bow to the top of my sign above my strawberries, and to make my ribbon look a little bit more polished, I cut them into a dovetail, and then I just needed to add a hanger. So here I'm adding 2 strands of jute along the back side. And this is what the sign looks like all finished. I absolutely love this one so much. There were a lot of steps to it because you guys know I love detail, but I think it is so worth it. Next up is DIY number 3. For this project, I'm going to be using those top handles of the watermelon popsicles that Tracy had sent. And I'm just going to cut those top handles off with my saw. I'm also going to be using this wood trim piece from Home Depot, and I'm just going to be cutting this off camera with my jigsaw to look like popsicles. I curved the top portions of them, and then the bottom was a straight line. If you guys have not seen Courtney's video, she recently did one where she created popsicles very similar to this, so go check that video out if you haven't seen it already. So now I'm going to be painting these patriotic. I'm going to be doing the top lines with my red paint, and then the grooves I left white. I then am painting the bottom and the top of the popsicle red as well, leaving the sides that white stripe. Then I'm going to be painting the handles with a navy blue paint, and then I thought it would be really cute if I added some mini stars. So here I have this stencil in my stash that had the perfect size stars, so I'm just using some of my white paint and very lightly painting these stars all over the handles. I then used some hot glue to attach those handles to the bottom of my popsicles, and I thought it would be really cute to add some of this white rope at the very bottom. So here I just tied a cute little bow and then used some hot glue to hold it into place. This is what the popsicles look like all finished. I love these ones as well. I think they're super cute and very patriotic. Let me know what you guys think of these. Moving right along into DIY number 3, for this one, I'm going to be using the patriotic sunglasses that Tracy had sent in my box. After looking at the glasses, I realized it was probably easier for me to get the lenses out once I popped off these earpieces. So I'm setting those aside, and yes, it was super simple for me to just pop those lenses right on out. Then I wanted to take the stars off of the lenses, so I'm using some nail polish remover to wipe those away. Next, I'm using some of this floral printed napkin. I took the plies off so it was just the flower portion, that really thin tissue layer. And then here you can see I'm just cutting a smaller piece of that napkin to fit around the lens. I'm then using some Mod Podge and just applying it to the front of the lens and then pressing on that napkin paper. Then I took some scissors and just cut away the excess napkin from around the lens. I then realized I needed to add another piece of this napkin to the back of my lens. So I did those same steps. I cut another piece of the napkin, just used the Mod Podge on the back side, placed the napkin over top, pressed it down, and then cut away the edges. Yes, I am using kid scissors. I have a kid, and those were the scissors that were next to me. I then used some Mod Podge to just seal up around the edges of the lens and let that completely dry. I am now going to be adding a hole to the very top center of my lens. My heat tool attachment was a little bit too large for this, so I ended up just heating up one of the little Cricut tools that I have here that had a really small point. And then once it was heated, I could just press it through the top of my lens. Now I'm going to be using some of these little earring pieces here that I picked up from Hobby Lobby. I just used some pliers to open up that little hole and then looped that through the hole of my earring and then just clamped it back shut with my pliers. And here are the earrings all finished. I think these are adorable and I had so much fun making these. Let me know, would you make these and would you actually wear them? Now we're moving into DIY 5. For this project, I'm starting out with one of these unfinished wooden crates from Dollar Tree, and I'm also going to be using this larger wooden dowel. I'm going to be making a tiki stand, and I need to see how long I need the dowels to be on each side. So once I have that figured out, I'm just using my miter shears here to cut 2 of them to the correct size. I'm also going to be using these barbecue skewers that Tracy sent in my box. I'm using several of these, and I'm going to be covering the entire front and sides of my crate with these skewers. So here you can see I've marked off the size that I need, and then I'm just going through and cutting and cutting and cutting because I used several. I'm then using these smaller dowels, and I'm going to be using 2 of them on the sides of my crate as some wooden detail. So I'm cutting those ones down to size as well. I then started attaching all of those skewers to the front of my crate one by one, and once I had the entire front covered, I ended up attaching those 2 larger small dowels that I had cut down on each side. For some added detail trim pieces, I added a dowel on the bottom of the crate as well as the top of the crate. I then needed to continue adding those skewers on the sides, so that is what I'm doing here. But when I got in the center of where the little handle is, I am going to be attaching those larger dowels that I had already cut down. But you'll see here in a minute, I actually have to rip it off and turn it around. But once I have that added, I actually went through and added another dowel to the top of my crate because it looked a little messy and I wanted it to look more polished. And then this is where I realized, oh no, I did it upside down. So I'm just ripping that off and flipping the crate over and reattaching that dowel. And I'm doing that to both sides of the crate so that both sides are equal. Now that my stand's flipped over, I needed to add another dowel just to make sure that that top portion looks nice and polished as well. I did the other side, and then now I'm adding hot glue on the tops of those dowels sticking up and adding one of these Dollar Tree planks to create the roof for my tiki stand. Remember the dowel hat that Tracy sent me? Well, this is where I'm going to be incorporating it into one of my projects. I used some scissors to just cut the dome portion off of the hat so that it would be a little bit easier to work with. I then went through and unbraided several strips of this material so that I could add it to the top of my little tiki bar. So now that I have several strips, I'm just going to go through and hot glue each one of them onto the roof of my tiki bar. After it was all attached, I just went back through and trimmed it all up using some scissors. And now I'm going to be incorporating those earpieces to the sunglasses. When you hold it together, it totally looks like a surfboard. So here I'm just going to be hot gluing the pieces together. But of course, there was still an opening in the center and I needed to cover that up. So I took some of this craft paper that I had in my stash. I cut a piece of it out. And then I'm going to be using some Mod Podge to attach it to my surfboard. And I tried to make sure that I had the stripe going right down the center. So once it was attached, I then used some scissors to trim that excess paper from around my surfboard and then used more Mod Podge to make sure that it was very secure and glued down. I'm then going to be making another accessory piece. This is going to be the sign for the front of my tiki bar. I'm using a small scrap piece of wood with some more of those barbecue skewers. Here you can see I'm just marking the barbecue skewers where I need to cut because I'm going to be having that scrap piece of wood trimmed with these barbecue skewers and then just attaching them with hot glue. Next, I went in with my walnut colored wood tint and started staining all of the trim pieces on my tiki bar at the top, the bottom, and the sides. And then I also stained the trim pieces on the sign that I'm in the process of creating. So once I have all that stained, I then took the color Spanish Moss from Volkart and painted that on the inside of my mini sign. Then off camera, I cut the skewers once again in very small pieces to create my little tiki sign here, and I'm just using some hot glue and tweezers to attach those pieces to my sign. And here I go again, creating more small detail pieces. So this unfinished wood fence piece is from Hobby Lobby. I love having these on hand to create small little signs. Here you can see I've taken 3 of the pieces off of the fencing and I'm going to be cutting them down to the size that I want my little arrow sign to be. So I'm going to be painting one of the arrows with an orange color, one with like a purpley pink, and then the third one with a light blue. I'm then going to be just hand writing some words on each one of my arrows. The first one I did was pool, then beach, and then the third one I just wrote out drinks. I then attached them to a small scrap piece of wood going in different directions, and then using hot glue to attach my little sign to the right hand side of my tiki bar. I needed to use the baseball beads that Tracy sent me, so here I'm taking 3 of them and just placing them on a scrap piece of wood so that they would be a little bit easier to paint. And I'm going to be creating coconuts. I used a sponge brush with some brown paint and just painted all 3 of them. Then once the paint was dry, I wanted to put something in the center of the beads so that it looked like a coconut drink. So I just used some of my air dry Crayola clay and just stuffed it right inside of that bead hole. Then I thought it would be really cute if I had a little mini straw coming out. So I took the skewer, painted one of them red. I cut it into 3 very small pieces and then just stuck those in each one of my little coconuts. I took another small scrap piece of wood, I'm painting it white, and then I'm just using a pen and writing out the words coconut drinks. I'm then going to start attaching everything. I am using a tumbling tower block, attaching it to the top of the left-hand side of my bar, and then here I am going to attach that coconut drinks sign to the top left-hand side of my tiki bar, and then attaching all 3 of my coconuts there on that tumbling tower block. I then took some of these little bottles, I believe these ones are from Dollar Tree, and I hot glued 3 of them down on the right hand top side of my bar. I'm then attaching my surfboard to the left hand side, and of course I have attached the tiki sign to the front. I also found some of these green leaves in my stash and I attached those to the front of my bar as well. And that was it for this project. I had so much fun creating every single little detail, and I was able to include part of the glasses, the beads, the hat, and also those skewers that Tracy sent me. Let me know what you guys think of this project. Next up is DIY number 6. Remember the bag that Tracy sent? Well, I'm going to be using the remainder of the bag to create a super cute pillow. I have this cream color fabric from Hobby Lobby that I'm just cutting down into a rectangle shape so that I can attach it to the front of that bag, which is now going to be a pillow. To attach the fabric, I'm just going through and using some hot glue, starting at the top and then working my way down. I'm then adding some of this cream and navy striped ribbon, and I'm just going to be attaching it with hot glue around all 4 sides of that fabric. Next, I'm creating my own custom stencil to spell out the word beach. I had these single word letters in my craft stash, but they had numbers on them. I'm just cutting the numbers off so that I can use just the letters, and then I'm getting them centered right in the middle of my pillow. And once I have it where I want it to be, I'm using some tape to hold those down. I then went in with a navy colored paint with a stencil brush and stenciled that word on. I did have a little bit of bleeding underneath the stencil, but I think it's because I didn't have a flat surface. That bag underneath is pretty textured, but I think it still looks really good. I did get a little bit of blue paint on the fabric where I didn't want it, so here I just cut out one of these starfish stencils that I had from Dollar Tree, and I just put it over where that blue smudge was, and I'm just going to be stenciling it on with that same navy color, and I actually think it looks pretty cute with that starfish on. For some added detail, I'm adding these wooden buttons with a smaller wooden button right inside along all 4 sides of where I have the ribbon. To fill up my pillow, I'm just using a square pillow insert that I had, and then to close the top, I'm just using some hot glue and then folding that over and closing it up. This is what the pillow looks like all finished. I think it turned out really good. It's obviously not washable or anything like that, but I still think it is super cute. Moving right along, we are now into DIY number 7. For this one, I'm going to be using this strawberry cone metal sign that Tracy sent me. The first thing I needed to do was remove that cone. So here I'm just using some pliers to do that. I then needed to cover up the front of the sign because all of that writing was raised, so I really couldn't paint it. I'm using the patriotic star paper, tracing it out and cutting it down to the exact size. I'm then using some Mod Podge and just applying it to the metal sign and then pressing on that star paper. Remember the boomerang set that she sent me? Well, I'm using this orange one here and I cut it down and I was really stumped with these. I could not think of anything. I actually just kind of started cutting it down and then realized the top like rounded parts of these kind of look like a popsicle. So that is what I'm going to be creating. I cut the ends of the boomerang down like you saw me do, and then here I'm cutting 2 little pieces of the popsicle sticks from Dollar Tree. I originally started painting the boomerang parts just red and then attached my little popsicle sticks there. But then after looking at it, I'm like, these need to be striped. So I then went in with my blue and white paint and I just painted them red, white, and blue. I grabbed this old Dollar Tree sign for my craft stash and it was the perfect size that I needed for this project. I'm painting the back of it with my navy colored paint, and then I had this Stars and Stripes stencil in my craft stash. It's from Amazon. If it's still available, I'll have it linked down in my description box, but I'm just getting it centered, using some tape to hold the stencil down, and using some white paint with a stencil brush to get that painted on. I used this red and white striped thread to create 2 super small bows, but before I attach those, I need to attach my Stars and Stripes sign here. I just used some hot glue and then attached it right in the center of my metal sign with the stars. And then I'm going through and attaching those little bows I created over the holes. I then am adding my popsicles to the top and bottom of my sign, but I thought it looked kind of plain around the edges. So here I'm taking some of this red ribbon that I had in my stash and I'm just hot gluing it around all 4 sides of my sign. And this is what it looks like all finished. This one was another super fun project to create. I was a little sad I had to do something with that metal sign, but I do love how this one turned out. Next, we have DIY number 8. For this project, I'm starting with one of these canvases from Dollar Tree, but I wanted to create a reverse canvas. So here I'm taking a utility knife and just cutting the canvas off of the frame. I then needed to trim up the canvas so that I could reattach it. So I'm just using some scissors to trim that up. Then I'm going to be just reattaching it to the frame, but I do like the more darker side of the canvas as the front. So I did it backwards and then just used my staple gun to reattach that canvas. I then stained the entire frame with my walnut wood tint, which I kind of wish I would have did that before attaching the canvas, but I completely forgot, so I kind of did it backwards. Next, I'm going to be using this flower like sand toy, I guess you could say. This came in the pack of beach toys that Tracy sent me. And as you can see here, I just painted a pink color around that entire rim of the flower, and I'm just stamping it onto my canvas. I did this 5 different times. I did 2 flowers on the bottom, 2 flowers at the top, and then 1 flower in the center. I had these unfinished wood flowers from Hobby Lobby, and they were the exact shape that fit basically the sand toy. So here I'm painting those with the same pink colored paint, and then I'm attaching them inside of those flowers that I stamped on. And then once that was done, I wanted to add a cute little detail of buttons. So I'm using a larger button in the center of the flowers and then a smaller button in the center of the larger buttons. And this is what the flower picture looks like all finished using that beach toy that Tracy sent me. I think it's really cute. Let me know what you think of this one. Now it's time for the ninth and final DIY in today's video. I'm starting out with this old table leg that I had in my craft stash that's already painted white. I also have this piece of wood that I had created a coaster with a long time ago. I don't ever use it and I needed the piece of wood. So here I'm painting it with a navy colored paint. And then I'm also using this flower beach toy that Tracy sent me. I've already removed the green stem that was on it. And now I need to create a hole. So I'm using my heat gun, or not my heat gun, my heat tool, and just creating a really small hole in the plastic. I'm then going to be using some hot glue around the top screw and wood on my table leg and attaching my garden toy in that hole. I'm then using some hot glue right in the center of my wood piece and attaching my table leg. I had this a little wooden cap that I added to the top there for some detail, and then I added bird seed. This is a standing bird feeder, and it was really hard with those beach toys. This is like all I could think of besides using the bucket as like a bucket or a flower pot. So I hope you like what I created with this one. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Make sure that you go down in my description box and click on the link so that you can go to the playlist and watch everybody's videos that are in today's mystery box challenge. I do hope you will leave a comment down below letting me know which project was your favorite from today, and I want to thank you so much for watching.